The Johnson family had always believed their neighborhood was the very definition of safety and order. Rows of identical houses with freshly painted fences, well-manicured lawns, and flower beds bursting with color lined the streets like a postcard-perfect community. It was the kind of place where neighbors greeted each other by name, kids played freely until dusk, and the local homeowners association was known for keeping things neat, peaceful, and quiet. Lisa Johnson took immense pride in her home and the neighborhood they had built a life in. Every morning, she watered the flowers on their porch and chatted with neighbors, making sure the community stayed close-knit and supportive. She was fiercely protective of her family, especially her teenage son, Ethan, whose laughter filled the house with life. Tonight, like many others, she was looking forward to a peaceful evening with her husband Mark and Ethan. But beneath the picture-perfect surface, a dark shadow was creeping in, one that no one saw coming. At exactly 10 p.m., Lisa was tidying up in the living room when an unexpected loud knock at the door froze her in place. Her heart instantly tightened. Visitors at this hour were unusual, and something about the knock sent a chill down her spine. She glanced at Mark, who was peering cautiously through the window. Two men stood on their porch, dressed in dark uniforms with badges gleaming under the porch light. Lisa's gut twisted as the taller man spoke, his voice cold and official. Homeowners Association enforcement. We need to speak with you about a serious violation. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady but firm. What violation? We've always followed the HOA rules. The men avoided a direct answer. Instead, the shorter one held up a small booklet, filled with pages of regulations. Your son's room has been reported for repeated infractions. We're here to investigate. If you don't comply, we'll have to escalate the matter. Lisa's eyes narrowed. This didn't feel right. She exchanged a glance with Mark. Are you really with the HOA? Can we call the board to verify? The men hesitated, their smiles disappearing. Ethan appeared behind his parents, his curiosity quickly turning to concern. What's going on? The taller officer turned to Ethan, his smile cold. We're here to ensure order in this community, son. Cooperation is in your best interest. Lisa's protective instincts flared. She moved in front of Ethan, her tone sharp. You can't just barge in and accuse our son without proof. Suddenly the tension exploded. The men pushed past Mark, moving into the house with aggressive force. Lisa stepped forward, placing herself firmly between them and Ethan. Stop! We will not let you intimidate our family. But the taller man grabbed Ethan's arm roughly. Lisa's heart pounded as she shouted, Let him go! What followed was a nightmare. Ethan was thrown to the ground as the men began their brutal assault. Lisa tried to intervene, but was shoved aside. Her screams filled the house as she watched her son's body, shattered under the weight of the attack. Call the police! Lisa cried, her voice breaking. Mark scrambled for his phone, but Lisa stayed close to Ethan, holding his broken body as best she could. Through tears, she whispered words of comfort, her resolve hardening like steel. When the attackers finally fled, Lisa knew life would never be the same. The perfect neighborhood was gone, replaced by a horror no mother should ever face. But who were these men? Why had they come to terrorize her family? Lisa vowed she would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The night was thick with silence, broken only by Lisa's ragged breaths and the faint, painful groans of Ethan lying on the living room floor. Outside, the street lamps flickered weakly, casting long shadows that seemed to creep into the house itself. Mark was already on the phone with 911, his voice tense but urgent. Please send an ambulance. My son has been severely injured. 2. Men posing as HOA officers attacked him. Lisa stayed by Ethan's side, gripping his cold hand as tears streamed down her face. She couldn't shake the terrifying image of those men, their cold, expressionless faces, as they shattered her son's bones without remorse. Minutes felt like hours until the sound of sirens pierced the night, growing louder until flashing. Red and blue lights spilled through the front windows. Paramedics rushed in, swiftly taking over, carefully lifting Ethan onto a stretcher. Lisa followed closely, clutching Mark's arm as they watched their son being rushed away to the hospital. The police officers took statements from the shaken parents. Lisa's voice trembled, but she made sure every detail was clear. They wore badges. They said they were HOA enforcement, but something was off. Their uniforms didn't look right. We never saw their faces before. Detective Ramos listened, intently, his expression grim. We've had a few reports like this. People impersonating officials to gain access and intimidate homeowners. But violence like this, it's unprecedented. Lisa's heart pounded. Why would they do this to Ethan? He's just a kid. Ramos shook his head slowly. That's what we need to find out. As dawn approached, Lisa couldn't sleep. She sat by the hospital window, staring out at the peaceful street that now felt so foreign. Her mind raced with questions. Who had reported Ethan? Why target her family? And how had these men gotten inside their home? Determined not to wait for the police alone, Lisa took it upon herself to dig deeper. The next morning, she called the HOA board's official office. A polite but firm voice answered. "This is the HOA management office. How can I help you?" Lisa swallowed hard. "I need to confirm something. Were any HOA officers dispatched to my home last night, and do you authorize any enforcement actions after 8 p.m.? The response was immediate and unsettling. "No, ma'am. We don't send officers out after dark, and we have no record of any complaints or visits to your address." Lisa's stomach dropped. "So those men weren't from your organization?" "No, ma'am. We believe they are imposters." The confirmation sent a wave of dread crashing over her. The people who had attacked her son were criminals, strangers masquerading in uniforms to terrorize families. Lisa shared the news with Mark, and together they scoured neighborhood watch groups, local social media pages, and community forums for any sign of similar incidents. To their horror, they found several vague reports of strange men knocking on doors, asking invasive questions, but no one had faced anything close to what Ethan endured. The community was on edge. Word spread quickly, and neighbors started locking doors earlier, refusing to open for anyone claiming HOA authority without verification. Lisa organized an emergency meeting, urging caution and vigilance. During the meeting, a murmur of fear rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered about rumors that a criminal gang was targeting affluent neighborhoods, using fake uniforms to gain entry and intimidate residents. The Johnson story was no longer an isolated tragedy. It was part of something bigger, something sinister. But even as Lisa worked to protect others, her thoughts were fixed on Ethan. The doctors warned of the long road ahead, surgeries, therapy, and the painful possibility he might never fully recover. Yet Lisa refused to let despair take hold. She promised her son and herself that she would fight every step of the way. One night, as she sat alone in Ethan's hospital room, a sudden knock at the door startled her. A nurse entered with a man in a suit, his eyes sharp and calculating. "I'm Agent Collins," he introduced himself quietly. "We're investigating these imposters. I want to speak with you and your family. There's more to this than you know." Lisa's pulse quickened. The nightmare was only beginning. The sterile hospital room, smelled of antiseptic and hope. But for Lisa, it was suffocating. Ethan lay unconscious, his body broken and battered. 28 fractured bones that told a story more brutal than any words could capture. She held his fragile hand, willing him to wake, to fight, to come back to her. Agent Collins sat nearby, his gaze sharp but compassionate. "Mrs. Johnson, I know this is difficult, but we need your help to understand what happened. Every detail could bring us closer to catching these men." Lisa nodded, fighting to keep her voice steady. "They came at night. 2 men. They wore uniforms, but not real ones. They said they were HOA officers. They demanded to see Ethan's room. When we hesitated, it all went wrong." Collins leaned forward. "Did they say why they were targeting Ethan?" Lisa shook her head. "No. They only mentioned violations. But we never got any complaints, and we've always followed the rules." Her mind raced back to that night, the chilling way those men moved, their cold, ruthless expressions. She remembered Ethan standing up, trying to protect his parents, and how quickly everything turned violent. "They attacked him," she whispered. "With no warning. I tried to stop them, but they pushed me away. It was like they wanted to break him." Collins jotted down notes, his eyes narrowing. This level of violence suggests something more than just intimidation. These men wanted to send a message. Lisa's heart clenched. But why? What kind of message? Collins hesitated, then said quietly, "That's what we need to find out." Meanwhile, Mark had returned home to start piecing together clues. He combed through Ethan's belongings, looking for anything that might explain the attack. Among school papers and soccer gear, he found a torn note hidden in Ethan's backpack. The handwriting was hurried but clear. "Don't trust HOA officers. They're not who they say." Mark's blood ran cold. Had Ethan sensed something? Was he trying to warn them? Back at the hospital, Lisa fought to stay strong. The doctors delivered grim updates. Ethan's injuries were severe, and the road to recovery would be long and painful. But her determination only grew fiercer. She vowed to protect her son and expose the evil hiding behind those fake badges. Days passed, each one heavy with tension and uncertainty. Then came a breakthrough. Police found surveillance footage from a neighbor's security camera. It showed the 2 men arriving just before midnight, dark uniforms, but the badges flickered oddly in the low light. More startlingly, the footage captured a third figure, watching from the shadows, unseen by the Johnsons. The man's face was obscured, but his presence suggested a deeper conspiracy. Lisa stared at the grainy video, her heart pounding. "Who is that?" she whispered. "Why were they watching?" Detective Ramos nodded grimly. "We believe this is part of a coordinated operation. These men didn't act alone." As the investigation deepened, the community's fears grew. Rumors of fake HOA officers terrorizing other neighborhoods spread like wildfire. Homeowners changed locks, installed cameras, and formed patrol groups. But Lisa knew that security alone wouldn't stop what was coming. One evening, as she sat by Ethan's bedside, the power suddenly flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Heart racing, Lisa fumbled for her phone's flashlight. A soft knock came at the door. "Mrs. Johnson?" A familiar voice whispered. It was Agent Collins. "We've uncovered new information. I need to speak with you and your husband immediately." "This goes deeper than we thought." Lisa swallowed hard, bracing herself. The nightmare wasn't over. It was only getting worse. The Johnsons sat in a small, dimly lit conference room at the police station, the weight of the past days pressing heavily on their shoulders. Lisa clutched Mark's hand tightly as Agent Collins laid out the pieces of the puzzle that were beginning to form. We've confirmed the two men who attacked Ethan were not authorized HOA officers. Collins began. Their badges and uniforms were expertly forged, but there's more. These men are linked to a criminal network operating in several states. Mark's eyes widened. A network? What kind of network? Collins looked serious. They've been targeting upscale neighborhoods like yours, impersonating officials to gain access, then using intimidation, theft, and violence to carry out their crimes. Lisa's stomach twisted. But why our son? Why attack a kid? That's the troubling part. Collins said, we believe Ethan stumbled onto something that made him a threat to these criminals. Lisa shook her head in disbelief. Ethan's just a kid. What could he have possibly done? Collins slid a file across the table. Inside were copies of emails and texts found on Ethan's school computer. They showed messages between Ethan and a classmate named Sarah, discussing unusual activity in the neighborhood, strange vehicles, unfamiliar people lurking near homes, and whispered rumors of a secret enforcement squad. Lisa's heart skipped. He was trying to warn us. Exactly, Collins said. These imposters saw Ethan as a liability. They wanted to silence him. The room fell silent as the Johnsons absorbed the chilling revelation. Lisa felt a surge of anger and fear. Her son had become a target for simply trying to protect his community. Later that day, Lisa visited the HOA board office to demand answers. The board members were cooperative, but clearly shaken. The HOA president, a woman named Mrs. Reynolds, admitted, we had no idea these imposters were operating. We take our community's safety very seriously. Lisa's voice was firm. How could this happen without your knowledge? There are people out there using your name to hurt families. Mrs. Reynolds nodded solemnly. We're reviewing all security measures immediately. As Lisa left the office, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Stop digging, or your family will pay. Her blood ran cold. The threat was real, and the danger was closer than she thought. That night, the Johnson home was eerily quiet. Lisa double-checked the locks and set the alarm. Yet as she turned off the lights, a shadow moved outside the window. Someone watching. The realization hit her hard. This was no random attack. It was a calculated assault by people who knew exactly what they were doing. Determined not to be intimidated, Lisa began organizing the neighbors. She shared what she had learned, urging vigilance and unity. Together, they installed security cameras, formed watch groups, and reported suspicious activity to the police. Meanwhile, Detective Ramos focused on identifying the third figure from the surveillance footage, the shadowy observer who seemed to orchestrate the attacks from behind the scenes. Days later, the breakthrough came. The third man was linked to a disgraced former HOA official who had been expelled for corruption 2 years earlier. Rumors suggested he had formed a criminal gang, disguised as enforcement officers, to regain control and profit. Lisa's fists clenched. The nightmare was personal. Ethan's condition remained critical, but the family's resolve was stronger than ever. Lisa vowed to expose the imposters, protect her community, and bring justice to those who had shattered her son's life. But, with every answer uncovered, new questions emerged. How deep did the conspiracy run? Who else was involved? And how far would they go to keep the truth buried? The fight was far from over. The Johnsons had hoped that uncovering the former HOA officials' involvement would bring some relief, but instead it plunged their neighborhood deeper into fear and suspicion. The quiet streets that once echoed with children's laughter now hummed with whispered rumors and uneasy glances. Lisa stood at the edge of the community center, addressing a crowd of neighbors, gathered for the emergency meeting she had called. Faces she had known for years looked back at her. Some anxious, some angry, others simply shell-shocked. "We can't live like this," Lisa said firmly, her voice carrying over the restless crowd. "Someone betrayed us. Someone from inside. Our own HOA has been using their power to hurt families, to terrorize children like Ethan. We have to stand together. Watch out for each other." A murmur ran through the crowd. She caught sight of Mr. Hargrove, a longtime resident and former HOA board member, shaking his head slowly. Lisa noticed his eyes flicker nervously as he avoided her gaze. Something about him seemed off. After the meeting, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. At home, Mark shared her unease. "We need to be careful. Whoever is behind this has connections. They know our routines, maybe even our secrets." Lisa nodded, her mind racing. She remembered the warning text. "Stop digging, or your family will pay." It wasn't empty threat. Someone wanted them silenced. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. The Johnsons' security cameras caught shadowy figures lurking just beyond their yard. Their car tires were slashed overnight, and one evening, Lisa found a note pinned to their front door. "Stay quiet, or worse comes." Fear gripped the family, but it also steeled their resolve. Lisa decided to take a bold step. She reached out to Sarah, the classmate who had exchanged messages with Ethan, and asked to meet. Sarah was hesitant, but agreed, showing Lisa photos she had taken of suspicious vehicles and men in dark uniforms driving through the neighborhood late at night. "There's more," Sarah whispered, glancing around nervously. "I overheard them talking. They mentioned a big job coming soon. Something about cleaning up loose ends." Lisa's blood ran cold. The attack on Ethan might just have been the beginning. Meanwhile, Detective Ramos and Agent Collins were working tirelessly to untangle the web of corruption. Their investigations revealed that several HOA board members might be compromised, taking bribes and covering up illegal activities to protect the imposters. At a secret meeting, Lisa confronted Mr. Hargrove. His calm facade cracked under pressure. "I didn't want it to come to this," he confessed bitterly. "But the money was too good. We thought we could control them." "Keep it quiet." Lisa's voice was ice. "You endangered lives. My son's life." Mr. Hargrove's eyes darted away. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get this bad." The betrayal stung deeper than the physical wounds Ethan carried. Determined to bring the truth to light, Lisa organized a coalition of concerned residents, local journalists, and legal experts. Together, they prepared to expose the corrupt HOA members and the criminal gang operating behind their backs. But just as momentum built, an anonymous tip warned Lisa that her family was being targeted again. This time, the danger was closer than ever. One night, as Lisa returned home from the hospital, headlights blazed behind her. A car followed at a dangerous speed, its intentions clear. Heart pounding, Lisa took sharp turns, desperate to lose the tail. Finally, she reached the safety of her driveway and slammed the door shut. Trembling, she knew the fight to protect her family was only escalating. Ethan's recovery was slow, but Lisa's determination burned brighter than ever. The shadows lurking in her neighborhood had revealed themselves, and she was ready to bring them into the light, no matter the cost. Lisa's hands trembled as she locked the door behind her, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The night's chase had left her shaken, but alive. She glanced out the window at the darkened street, wondering how deep this nightmare really went. Mark was waiting inside, his face etched with worry. "Are you okay?" he asked, pulling her into a tight embrace. Lisa nodded, though fear lingered like a shadow. They're watching us. They won't stop. The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits, police interviews, and frantic phone calls. Ethan's condition was fragile, but his spirit remained unbroken. Lisa drew strength from his resilience, a reminder of why she couldn't give up. Detective Ramos called with an update that sent a chill through the family. We've identified one of the imposters. His name's Victor Hayes. He's been linked to a series of break-ins and violent attacks in nearby communities. Lisa felt a surge of hope. Can you arrest him? Ramos sighed. We're trying, but he's slippery. He has allies and they're well connected. It's not just him. This is a network. Agent Collins joined the investigation, coordinating with federal agencies to track the gang's movements. He warned Lisa, this goes beyond local HOA politics. We're dealing with organized crime. Lisa's world had shifted from neighborhood disputes to something far more dangerous, yet she refused to be paralyzed by fear. Determined to protect her family, Lisa installed new security systems and hired a private security consultant recommended by Collins. She also reached out to other victims, creating a support network that shared information and kept watch. One evening, as she reviewed footage from their new cameras, a familiar figure appeared. A man lurking near their back fence, watching their house. Lisa's breath caught. She recognized him from the surveillance videos. Victor Hayes. Lisa called Mark urgently. He's here. We need to do something. Mark nodded grimly. I'll call the police. You stay inside. But before the officers arrived, the man vanished. Into the night, the Johnsons were living under siege, their lives controlled by fear and uncertainty. Meanwhile, the community's efforts to root out corruption began to yield results. Several HOA board members resigned under pressure, and an independent audit exposed years of financial mismanagement and ties to the criminal gang. Lisa found a strange comfort in the growing unity among neighbors, but she knew the threat was far from over. One afternoon, as she walked through the neighborhood park, she spotted Sarah waiting nervously by the benches. I found something, Sarah said quietly, handing Lisa a USB drive. What is it? Lisa asked. Recordings, Sarah explained. Voices talking about plans to sabotage the HOA investigation, and instructions to take care of anyone who gets too close. Lisa's eyes widened. This is exactly what we need. That night, Agent Collins and Detective Ramos reviewed the recordings, identifying voices linked to several key suspects. We're closer than ever, Collins said. But the danger is escalating. We need to be ready. Lisa's phone buzzed suddenly. Another anonymous message. You're in over your head. Stop now. But this time, Lisa didn't flinch. She typed back. Try me. The war for her family, her neighborhood, and the truth had only just begun. The tension in the Johnson household had become nearly unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow cast by passing headlights, set Lisa's nerves on edge. Mark paced the living room, checking locks and windows for the third time. That night, Ethan, though exhausted from therapy, was alert and curious about the commotion. We can't keep living like this, Mark muttered, frustration evident in his voice. These people aren't just criminals. They're monsters. Lisa nodded silently, knowing he was right. The imposters' violence had shattered their family. But what terrified her most was the growing threat lurking just beyond the neighborhood. An unknown force pulling the strings, determined to silence them all. Detective Ramos arrived with grave news. Victor Hayes has been arrested in another state. We're coordinating with federal agents to bring him in for questioning here. But be warned, this may provoke retaliation. Lisa's heart clenched. The man responsible for her son's suffering was finally caught, but she knew it wouldn't end there. That same evening, Lisa received an urgent call from Sarah. "Lisa, they're planning something big, a coordinated strike against the HOA board meeting tomorrow night. They want to intimidate everyone who's speaking out." Fear shot through Lisa like electricity. She immediately called Mark. "We need to protect the board members and ourselves." Together, they organized a security detail and alerted local law enforcement. The community's vigilante spirit ignited once more. Neighbors volunteering to guard the meeting hall. The night of the meeting, the tension was palpable. Lisa sat beside Mark, her eyes scanning every face that entered the room. The HOA president, Mrs. Reynolds, arrived flanked by officers. The air was thick with unease. Minutes into the meeting, the lights suddenly flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps and whispers filled the air. Lisa's heart pounded as a shadowy figure slipped through the chaos, slipping notes onto the podium and scattering papers across the floor. A voice rang out in the darkness, cold and menacing. "Stop this madness, or more will suffer." The room erupted in panic. Lisa grabbed Mark's hand, pulling him toward the exit, as police officers struggled to restore order. Outside, headlights roared, and a convoy of black SUVs sped past the community center. A blatant show of force. Lisa's throat tightened. The threats were no longer whispered, they were shouting. In the following days, the Johnson family received a string of anonymous packages. Broken glass, threatening letters, and chilling photographs of their home. Yet despite the mounting danger, Lisa refused to back down. She appeared on local news, sharing their story and pleading for public support. The community rallied behind her, organizing fundraisers for Ethan's medical expenses and increasing neighborhood patrols. Then, just when hope seemed within reach, the unthinkable happened. One night, Lisa awoke to the sound of shattering glass. She rushed to Ethan's room to find a masked intruder standing over her son's bed. Frozen with terror, Lisa screamed. The man hesitated, then fled as sirens blared in the distance. Neighbors had called the police. The incident was a brutal reminder. The imposter's reach extended even into their sanctuary. As Lisa held Ethan close, tears streaming down her face, she vowed to end the nightmare once and for all. The battle for justice was far from over, and this time, the stakes were life and death. The attack on Ethan's room was the final breaking point. The Johnsons knew the stakes had never been higher. The nightmare had followed them into their sanctuary, leaving no corner untouched by fear. But Lisa's resolve burned brighter than ever. The next morning, the neighborhood was a flurry of activity. Police presence had doubled, and a federal task force had arrived to support the ongoing investigation. Agent Collins and Detective Ramos worked tirelessly, piecing together evidence and preparing for the arrests that could finally bring the imposters to justice. Lisa sat beside Ethan in the hospital, holding his hand as he regained consciousness. His eyes fluttered open, a weak smile spreading across his face. "Mom," he whispered, "are the bad men caught?" Lisa's heart swelled with hope. "We're getting there, sweetheart. We're going to make sure they never hurt anyone again." Over the following days, arrests swept through the community and beyond. Victor Hayes was linked to multiple crimes, including the Johnson assault. The disgraced HOA official and several accomplices were charged with conspiracy, assault, and fraud. It seemed the justice system was finally catching up. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Streets that had once been shadowed by fear slowly filled with cautious smiles and cautious steps. Lisa's courage had sparked a movement, uniting a fractured community. But just as the Johnsons began to rebuild their lives, a new, unnerving twist emerged. Late one evening, Lisa received a mysterious envelope. Inside was a single photograph. A candid shot of her, Mark, and Ethan at the hospital, taken from outside the window. No note, no signature, just a chilling reminder. The watchers were still out there. Lisa's stomach tightened. Had the threat truly ended? Or was it merely evolving, adapting? Her phone buzzed. A text message appeared. "You've won this round, but the game is far from over." The message was from an unknown number. Lisa's mind raced. She realized the fight for safety, truth, and justice was not a battle with a neat ending. It was a war with shifting fronts, hidden enemies, and a constant need for vigilance. Gathering her family, Lisa made a decision. They would continue to live with open eyes and strong hearts, ready for whatever came next, for Ethan, for their community, for all the families who had been broken by the imposter's cruelty. The Johnsons had endured unimaginable pain, but from that pain had risen an unbreakable will. The imposters had shattered bones and trust, but they had not shattered hope. And as Lisa looked out over the neighborhood, a place scarred but resilient, she knew one thing for certain: this story was far from over.